Hey guys, back with another chapter with the Losers Club. Today we have chapter 31. It's called One Crazy Day. Friday morning during first period music, Alec kept watching for a chance to talk to Kent, to look him in the eye and tell him to lay off his little brother. He didn't want to make a huge deal out of it, but he had to say something. The chorus was learning a new song, and Miss Dunbridge said, "Tenors and baritones, I need you to work with the altos and sopranos around the piano for a few minutes, so take a break, but keep it quiet." Most of the guys sat down on the risers and started talking softly. Several lit up their phones and a few pulled out homework. Alex stepped forward off the risers, then looped to his left to go around behind them. He was headed for the baritone section, looking for Kent. And there he was, sitting just about where he had been standing, the large music notebook still in his hands. Coming up from behind, Alec was about to tap him on the shoulder, but he stopped. Kent had the river hidden inside the music notebook, and he was only 10 or 15 pages from the end. He must have stayed up reading half the night. Alec tiptoed back the way he had come, but he had the feeling that he could have yodeled or tap danced and Kent would never have noticed. He was elsewhere. 5 minutes later, as the full chorus began singing again, Alec glanced to his left. Kent pretended to be looking at his music and he moved his lips a little, but the guy was definitely reading, a trick Alec himself has used many times before. After class, Alec could have caught up with Kent to talk about the Luke business. It also could have been a perfect chance to tease him a little, to say something like, "Hey, I saw what you were doing during chorus." But neither thought entered Alec's mind. He was busy thinking about what book to bring for Kent after school, because he definitely needed to be ready with a new one. By the time he got settled into math class, Alec was sure he should take Brian's Winter to the club, the third book in the Hatchet series. It was a no-brainer. Then he thought, but maybe I should bring 2 or 3 books and let Kent choose for himself. On the edge of his math worksheet, Alec started writing down possible books. During the next half hour, the list grew to 8 titles, with at least 10 others that he had written and then crossed out. And by the end of math class, he had a dozen solid books, the kind that Mrs. Haddon had called surefire can't-miss books. Third period language arts went by fast. Mr. Brock read a story out loud to the class, The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe, one of the creepiest stories Alec had ever heard. At the end of class, he wanted to talk to Nina, but she walked away with a group of girls, and he had to hurry to science. Just before he got to the room, Luke came trotting up. "Hey, guess what? Charles and I are all set to start up the reading club today. We're calling it the Mini Losers. The name was my idea." Alec was confused. "But if Charles is starting the club, how come you chose the name?" "Simple," Luke said. "I'm taking a break from animation club, and now I'm one of the founding members of the Mini Losers." Alec stared at him. "You? Starting a reading club?" Luke looked offended. "I read constantly. Except I don't read goofy stories about magic elves and sword fights and talking pigs, that's all." Alec rolled his eyes. "Right. I haven't seen you read a book in years." With a flourish, Luke whipped back the cover of his iPad, tapped the screen a few times, then stuck it under Alec's nose. 62 of my books, last time I counted. Welcome to the 21st century, genius." Alex stared at the small cover images on the screen, books like Surviving Minecraft, Mastering the iPad, Modern Cartooning, iOS Graphics Bank, iPadimation. The titles went on, and he had to admit it. My little brother is a reader. "Yeah," Luke went on, "I'll switch back to animation in a few weeks, which is perfectly legal according to the EDP rules. And Mr. Gallo, or Miss Gallo, the woman in charge of our clubs, I texted her and she..." "Wait, you texted the clubs lady?" "Sure, her cell phone is right there in the blue program booklet. She said it'll be good to have a reading club. Gotta go. If I don't get back to the library, they'll send a drone to hunt me down. But it's great news, huh?" Alec nodded. "Yeah, great. See you later." As he took his front row seat in science class, Alec didn't know why he found Luke's news so unsettling, but it was. Yes, they would have a whole different club in a different place, but Alec felt like he would still be connected to it. especially since Luke was on the startup crew. And was Luke going to be asking for advice and stuff? Because running one club was plenty. He didn't need another. Which reminded him about all the new kids who had joined up in the gym. 5 fourth graders. Jason and Lily were pretty solid, but those new girls, so noisy. This idea that had crept into his head, that it was good to have more and more readers hanging around, he found himself wishing they'd all disappear. He hated having to think about them. It was completely trashing his own reading time. And just when he was starting to feel like he could talk to a girl, and the girl was right there in the same club with him, and she actually seemed friendly, suddenly there was a crowd around them, plus Kent. The whole mess felt like a weight hanging around his neck. Alex sat there half in a daze, sort of paying attention and sort of participating in the class, but his mind was off in the club world. When the bell rang, he got up and walked with the crowd to the cafeteria. It was pizza day, so he got a slice of pepperoni, but he barely tasted it. And the second he was done, he rushed to the library, where he discovered that his list of a dozen great books for Kent wasn't much use. Mrs. Haddon reminded him that he could only have 4 books checked out at once. Kent had one, and Alec had left the library's copy of Hatchet at home last night, so he could only get 2 books. He got to social studies just as the bell rang, hot and out of breath, and then worried through the whole rest of the class about whether he had picked the right books for Kent to choose from. Then he remembered he had another book in his locker that would work too, which made him feel a little better. Still, Alec's mind was lit up like a pinball machine, his thoughts bouncing from one problem to another right up until the end of the day. Just as he had predicted, at the start of EDP, Kent sat down, tossed him the copy of The River, and said, "So, what's next, boss?" Kent acted like he was bored, and he might have fooled Nina and Jason and Lily. They hadn't seen him reading during chorus like Alec did. Alec played along with the game. He laid 3 books on the table between them. You can stay with the same series, that's this one, or a different adventure story set during the Klondike Gold Rush, or there's this biography, your pick. Kent started to reach for Brian's Winter, book 3 in the series, but at the last second he grabbed the biography and said, "Gotta go with King James, you know." The book was I Am LeBron James, and Kent opened it right up. Then he made an odd face. "This is your book?" He turned the inside cover of the book toward Alec, and Alec saw his own name, right where he'd written it with a permanent marker. "Yeah, I got it this summer," Kent said. "And you've read it?" What Kent was thinking was right there on his face. He couldn't imagine how a bookworm like Alec could enjoy a book about a sports superhero, as though only sports guys like sports books. Alec said, "Yeah, I've read it twice. The guy is just amazing. And I want to get this other one called LeBron's Dream Team, about when he was a high school player, but my dad says I have to wait because the language is too tough." "All right." All Kent said was, "Cool," and he settled in his place and started to read. Alec was smiling to himself as he opened up Brian's Hunt. It had been a sort of a crazy day, but it had turned out pretty well, even though it still felt there were too many kids in his club now. And then there was the other book club in the cafeteria. Still, he felt good about things. And Alec kept on feeling that way right up until dinner time, which was when he and his mom and dad looked at his weekly progress reports. They saw a 7 in math, a 7 in science, and a 6 in social studies. Alec was completely surprised, and then completely not surprised. He knew exactly how this had happened. It had been a great couple of days for the club and a terrible couple of days for his classwork. His dad said, "You know what this means, right?" Alec knew. It meant he had to report to homework room at 3 o'clock on Monday afternoon and stay there for 2 weeks. After some honest explaining and some serious begging, Alec managed to whittle down his penalty period from 2 weeks to just 1. Still, with everything that was happening in club world, 1 week away felt like a life sentence. All right, that is the end of chapter 31. Hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you next time.